All right, all right. Think we are live once again. What's going on, everybody? Hopefully y'all can hear me okay. I think we should be live now. Check on my end. Probably a little bit of a delay. Hope y'all can see me okay. Looking at it on my end, it looks a little bit blurry. And hopefully we have some folks that join in as well. Rock Sox Collectibles in the house. What's going on, my man? How you been? How you been? How you doing? Let's see. This, I think we're good. SDC, this is live. Yes, sir. PokéNav's a little bit he's a little bit rusty with the live, but I think we should be good. But we are really blurry, it looks like. I don't know why. You guys can let me know. Let me know if you're seeing things all right. So how's everybody been? Looks like we got 5 people here in the chat. How you guys been? How's the week been? Busy? Not too bad? Nearing the end of July? Getting ready for August? Pokemon World Championships right around the corner, which I believe is the 11th through the 13th, if I'm not mistaken. Anybody in the chat headed to Worlds? Interested to know that. Did have the opportunity. Did receive that email that I was eligible to purchase tickets, but I did not. Let's see. SDC says, how long does it usually take for Buy-E to ship to you? I have no idea, to be honest with you, SDC. I've never purchased anything off of Buy-E before, so I could not tell you, my friend. I'm sorry. Rock Sox Collectible says it's been busy. Been blistering hot in Santan. I would love to go to Worlds. Yeah. I'm disappointed in that I won't be attending myself. I think that it's a tremendous opportunity to be able to go to Japan and be in the fatherland of Pokemon. But I tell you, just between the logistics and the flights and also, I feel like, unfortunately, from what I have seen, all of the other events that are going on outside of the World Championships, you have that cruise ship, you have a fair, you have an art gallery, like all of these things that also require a lottery. Like nobody's getting drawn for it, which is really unfortunate. And so that makes it, I don't know. I guess I'm not too disappointed that I won't be attending, because it seems like, you know, you really don't have a whole lot of a chance to make it to those things as well. Northwoods TCG in the house. What's going on, man? Welcome in. Long time no see. SDC, I had to try Buy-E, and so far I'm waiting about 1 month. So far, Buy-E 2 stars. Yeah, I don't know. I think most people, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most people are using Buy-E for Japanese products. It might be Japanese exclusively on there. I'm not entirely sure. But I've never purchased anything on there. As far as Japanese products go, I usually just have my go-to resources if I'm going to get something and if I can get something. And that has been really, really difficult as of lately. So I really don't buy anything Japanese off of eBay or anywhere else. I just have my reliable sources that I go to that I know, and I've done a lot of volume of Japanese with, and that's pretty much who I stick to through and through. So yeah, I'm sorry, man. That sucks. I hate to hear that. Northwood says that he's waited up to 6 weeks. Jeez. Charizard Baller 69 Nav, you used to have a background full of stuff. Did you get rid of all of it or just in storage? Honestly, dude, most of it is just in storage right now. So I repainted this room. We've lived in this house now for going on 2 years, almost 2 years exactly. And, you know, initially I had like a background, and especially I actually used to be in another room just adjacent to this back before I ended the channel. And I moved into here and I've just never set anything up. I've repainted this room, but I really haven't decided how I want to design it, what I want to do with this room. And so right now, all of my Pokemon stuff is just either in storage. There's a closet right next to me. You guys have probably seen that if you watched my first video back on the channel. I've got a bunch of stuff in this closet right here, and then again, a bunch of stuff in storage. So yeah, I don't know. At some point, I'll try to get it spruced up in here and get some decoration and get some things in the background. But I'm not really in a hurry because I'm not really producing a ton of content right now. And maybe once we get to producing the podcast and things like that, I'll definitely get it much more copacetic and aesthetically pleasing in here. But for now, I'm not too worried about it. I'll get to it when I get to it. Because I'm actually thinking of doing something really cool in here. I'm thinking of doing like a slatted wall, this wall that's directly behind me, doing like a slatted wall with wood. And then having, man, this webcam has the hardest time keeping focus. I have to like stay super still. But having a slatted wall here, and then getting my goal is to get a neon sign made for whatever the name of the podcast is going to be, whether that's the PokéNav podcast or whatever. I'd like to have that as the background, and then maybe put in some art, maybe some of the Bear Walker boards and something like that. Just make it really cool. EGRM started my own store since the last time I was here. Time flies. Missed these live videos a lot. Yeah, dude, they were so much fun. I used to love doing it. We used to do this every Friday. Especially back in like early 2021, end of 2020, every single Friday we had a live Q&A. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, do you remember anyone else having Q&As like this back then? I don't really remember. I want to say that we were kind of the first ones to have Q&As where I was talking directly to the chat, doing Q&As. There might have been other channels, but I don't remember any. So it was kind of the impetus, I think, for a lot of other creators to do something similar. And I'm seeing that a lot across other Pokemon content creators, because I think they're just so much fun. And especially from the point of view of the content creator, it's just so much easier. You jump in, you do your stream, you do your chat. You don't have to do any editing, maybe a little bit on the back end. You throw your thumbnail together and put it out there. It's so much easier than doing an actual pre-recorded video. So I love these type of conversations, and that's really why I would like to, the direction of the channel, I would really like it to go more towards the podcast space, because I like this a lot better. But yeah, congratulations to you on your store, my friend. That's awesome. Not an easy endeavor to undertake. I can tell you that, but stick with it, stay the course, and get through some of those lows and reap the highs, because that's how this hobby is. It's a series of ebbs and flows. Let's see, SDC, did you send all your CGC 9.5s to get 10s with new label? I've never graded with CGC. Never. I've never had a single card graded with CGC. Whoa. you guys see that? See that thing flying into the camera? I don't know, man. There's all kinds of weird stuff going on in here. But yeah, never graded with CGC, and don't really have any intentions to. Maybe it probably would have been a good thing. Probably would have been a good idea to pick up some 9.5s. But hindsight's always 20/20. I've always been a PSA guy, and I know that's probably just a bias and just sort of my old school mentality, but that's just how I've always been, and I've always just stuck with PSA, and that's probably who I'll continue to stick with, especially now. Charizard boss, screw the background. Welcome back. Was sad when you left. Yeah, dude. I tell you, it was tough. But definitely at the time, it was the best decision for me, and it gave me that time to reflect over 2022. It gave me that time to look and be like, okay, well, what if I did bring the channel back? How would I want it? What are the things that I really enjoy? And it gave me that reflection time, which I think is really important for everyone, especially if you're creating content and wanting to put out something that you're proud of. But yeah, it's definitely fun to be back. I love it. The wall back there, the color, that's a good question. I think it's like I think they call it like gray or like a something slate. I don't remember the color code on it particularly, but this is really the color, the aesthetic and the mood that I wanted. This is also my office space. Now you guys can't see it, but directly next to me right here is also my workstation for my regular job as well. So I kind of have my personal station here. I've got my workstation over here. I've got a huge L-shaped desk right here. This thing is massive. It takes up a good portion of the room, honestly, but it really gives me the space to do what I need to, so I can kind of bounce back during the day of doing, my actual job, to, doing personal things, to doing, some of the other businesses that I have, just being able to easily work back and forth. So I really enjoy that. It works well. Let's see. Northwood says, Nav, what is your feeling about the current alternate art market for Sword and Shield? So for alternate arts, some that are coming to my mind, I think immediately of Evolving Skies, because I think that the alternate arts in that set really set the precedence for things to come after. Still a lot of great alternate arts throughout Sword and Shield, but when I think of the alternate arts, that's what comes to my mind. I think that Pokemon has realized that this is the direction that collectors and the hobby as a whole, this is the direction they'd like to see cards going. Whether that, is full art, alternate art, what is the new one now? Illustrator, what is it called? Illustrator art or something like that. Illustrator rare, something of that nature. I think they're awesome. I think that it's a great direction for Pokemon to take. I think that it's much needed. I think it is a welcome change from what we've had in the past. I think that personally, Pokemon is now going to focus more on including both Pokemon and trainers in their alternate arts, which we have seen. I think that you are also going to see them go back to something like tag team type of cards where you're featuring two Pokemon in a card. I don't know if that necessarily that mechanic, but you're starting to see that with sets that are coming out now where you're seeing multiple Pokemon in a set. Really, they're focusing a lot on the actual art of the card, which I really like. I think that not only adds the collectible aspect, but it also is something that even if you don't have a vested interest in Pokemon, you can appreciate the art of these cards, because that's really what it's becoming. And I think if you go all the way back to like 2017, 2018, that's what a lot of people were getting into, and maybe were being overlooked at that time, were full art cards, were alternate art cards, and being looked at as an actual art piece rather than just older cards maybe that we grew up with, where it was just a small picture and the majority of the card was devoted to mechanic, to playability of that card, and really highlighting that. So Yeah, I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be the way of the future, and I think that Pokemon will definitely capitalize on the changing tastes of the hobby, and will continue to provide cards that are pushing the barrier on that, and still utilizing that same sort of that same framework, but then expanding upon it. Let's see. Looks like we just got some conversations more or less in regards to Buy-E. And again, yeah, I'm not familiar with Buy-E at all. Unfortunately, I've never really used them. I don't really have any intentions to use them. And to be honest with you, right now with the Japanese market, I'm just being very patient to see where things are going. Very patient in waiting till reprints, which in my opinion, I think are very likely, especially when you look at the announcements that the Pokemon Company itself has made, basically stating that a lot of these sets that were short printed or that are in short supply, that they're going to make sure that they're going to get it out there. So I think Pokemon 151, Clay Burst, who knows, maybe even going back to V-Star Universe, I think that you're probably going to see more of these getting printed, and the key is just being patient. Now, unless you're able to scoop this up somehow directly from Pokemon Center Japan, you're always going to be paying secondary market prices. There's going to be various chains that it's going to have to pass through before it gets into your hands. So that's probably that goes from a Japanese distributor to a Japanese store to then somebody on the secondary market, and then finally to you, right? So I think it's going to be very difficult for somebody outside of Japan to be able to pick these products up at MSRP. Again, unless you're able to somehow get it off of PokemonCenter.com, which is very difficult. Typically, there is either a lottery or there is a very hard limit of perhaps one on each product, which makes it even more difficult, right? And on top of that, you need to have a proxy address that it can be sent to, and then forwarded along to you wherever you reside. Let's see. Graded packs discussion on PokéKnowledge PSA discussion with the CEO of PSA. Did you catch his response? I did not, but that is really interesting. I'm glad that you brought that up, because this is actually, for those of you that didn't tune in last time, that is actually a direction that I am focusing heavily on moving forward, is graded packs. I see graded packs as a very under-acknowledged aspect of the hobby. I think that when you look at the population reports, let's just take an example of most recently of, let's say, the U Nagaba promos, right? Now, again, in order to get those U Nagaba promo packs, which featured all of the evolutions, you had to purchase a certain amount on Pokemon Center Japan, and then you were given those packs as basically freebies, right? Well, when I was looking at that, and I knew that I was going to be getting in and buying products, and I was going to be getting packs, I ended up getting 20 packs total. When I got that, I knew full well that everyone that was going to be getting these was going to be breaking open those packs, and they were going to be having the evolutions graded, right? So I knew that there was going to be a huge influx of those cards that were going to be coming onto the market. However, I knew that the choice that nobody was really going to take, the route that nobody was really going to take, was having those packs graded, right? And so that's actually the play that I have right now. I've actually got 10 packs out right now that are with PSA that are being graded, currently in the process. And I think this, again, is a very overlooked aspect of the hobby. And who knows, I'm interested to hear about your conversation. I'm hoping that it is nothing nothing negative or indicates that they're not going to be doing this anymore, or that they're going to be overly strict, or that they're moving away from it. Let's see. Actually, we've got an answer here. CEO answer was a no answer, but it appears that PSA is now enforcing the terminology on the PSA website. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that. If you wouldn't mind expanding upon that, SDC, I'd love to hear it, man. Because again, this is something that I've been focusing on. Because again, when you look at the population reports and you compare packs to cards, I mean, it's a night and day difference, right? For instance, right, I have a box of emerging powers, black and white emerging powers. I've got about 24 loose packs out of a booster box. There is, I believe, 2 graded packs of emerging powers out there. That's it. You compare that to even evolutions. Like the difference between graded packs and graded cards is huge. And if you really think about it, as of right now, booster packs are the only gradable sealed product. Now, if you guys know of anything and I'm out of the loop, I hope that you'll correct me. But as to my knowledge, the only gradable sealed product. And let's be honest, sealed products are huge and have become even more sought after. And if you have a product which has a very high likelihood of being resealed, of being a fake product, if you can have that encapsulated, authenticated, and conditioned, I think that's huge. And I think that's an overlooked aspect of the hobby, and one that I don't see a whole lot of people talking about. I don't see a whole lot of people pursuing. And for me personally, every success story that I've had in the past when it comes to my investing takes on Pokemon has always been those sort of niche areas, has been those areas that are overlooked that people eventually catch on to, but being the early adopter of that and capitalizing on that early on is where I found a lot of success. So take that for what you will, and but that's definitely something that I'm focusing heavily on, and it's fun too. Also, VHS. That's when I look at the big areas of the Pokemon hobby, and I think of like anime, TCG, games, right? Well, guess what? Anime, as far as collectibles go, right? There's toys and there's things that are modeled after the anime, but directly tying to the anime itself, it's videos. And when I look at a collectible, especially in the vintage space, that's VHS. And VHS tapes are becoming more and more collectible and more sought after because they're like, for instance, my kids will never know a VHS. Much like when I was a kid, I didn't know 8-tracks, right? I knew CDs, I knew tapes, but I didn't know 8-tracks. So those things become something that we look to get because we never experienced that in our childhood. And I think that VHS tapes, and especially one that ties to the Pokemon anime, one that can be graded, one that can be authenticated, I think that's another area of the hobby that is an opportunity. And so that's another direction that I'm taking. Let's see. Ghost of Gary Coleman. If there was a rock evolution, it would be called Hardion. Okay. He said, I just buy pre-2001 cards. Nothing wrong with that either. Nothing wrong with being a quote-unquote vintage collector. Shug Nasty says, from what I understand, Nat Turner said that the pack grading standards have not changed, but they are focusing on doing a better job of upholding those standards. And that's something that I've also come to understand, is that the grading standards have become much more stringent, which I like. A lot of people don't like that, but I like when the grading standards do become more stringent because it provides even more credibility to that product. And that's something that I would definitely like to see in the graded pack space, because there has been that stigma in the past of, hey, all you got to do is send a pack in and you're going to get a 9 or a 10. Guaranteed. Doesn't matter. Especially if it's booster box fresh. So I do like that they are being more stringent on that, because I think over the long term, that adds more of a premium to a product that does receive a high grade, and it adds more validity to having those products graded, and actually purchasing one that has gone through that scrutinous process. Let's see, it's the enforcement of the PSA graded pack grading standards versus they used to be more lenient. Okay, so what we were just talking about. Northwood says PSA is testing encapsulating booster boxes. Matt Turner said that's really interesting. I think that, again, it's a huge opportunity. I don't understand why PSA hasn't really pursued this in the past. especially over the last few years when sealed products have really become some of the most sought after items out there, really going far and above graded cards, single cards. It's really cool to see that, and I hope they do, because I think that would just add just another level for PSA to put themselves above and beyond their competitors. If you had graded booster boxes, graded booster packs, maybe sleeved booster packs, ETBs for Pokemon, that just adds another dimension. And more than anything, I think the authentication of those products, basically, not knowing that there's not G.I. Joe booster packs in your booster box, I think is really important. And then the other layers on top of that of conditioning and encapsulation. I just love that. I would really like to see them pursue that more. Let's see. Any other questions that we have here? Pokemon Horizons from TKO Addict. Pokemon Horizons is actually pretty awesome. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be tuning in to Pokemon Horizons or not. It's very disheartening to know that Ash and Pikachu potentially may not be there anymore. Now, I'll be honest with you, I have not watched the anime thoroughly since Gen 2, since Gold and Silver, since the Johto Journeys and that era. I think I've watched every episode through like Gen 3, so like Ruby and Sapphire era. But I'll be honest with you, I really lost interest once they changed voice actors. I think Sarah Natacheni is just fine, but I always see Ash as Veronica Taylor, and so it's always been really difficult for me. And I just think that the storylines, the plot lines became very stale, and they became very monotonous for a long time. So I think it is a good change that they're shifting things up and moving away from just the same basic storyline of Ash. I did think they ended it very preemptively. I don't think that they really paid their due diligence in bringing the whole storyline of Ash, and I felt like it was very abrupt in him, becoming a quote-unquote Pokemon master. And I wish they would have played that storyline out a little bit more and really went into some of the different arcs that were in the storyline of the Pokemon anime. But yeah, again, I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to it. For me, much in the same manner that I do with the games, I have not played a Pokemon game since Ruby and Sapphire. So I haven't played any of the recent ones. Whenever I play a game, I just go back to Red and Blue. I play Gold and Silver, Crystal. I play Ruby and Sapphire. Like, I just don't play the modern stuff. Really, in essence, the only modern thing in Pokemon that I really take an interest in is probably the cards. Beyond that, don't pay a whole lot of attention. Shugnasty says, everyone is saying that they believe vintage is undervalued compared to modern right now. What are your thoughts? I think that, in a lot of ways, it's a very blanketed statement, because I think that there is potentially vintage cards that are undervalued when compared to modern cards, right? I think also something you have to understand is I think that the vintage markets have become quite vetted, because we're very familiar with them, and we have a long time horizon since those cards have been out to understand price points, to understand data points, and to basically be able to forecast where we believe those cards are going to go into the future. Now, could we possibly have another 2020 incident that could set off the Pokemon market? I don't know. I mean, we've only had it once. Even 2016, where we had sort of a renaissance, which was kind of our first inclination towards where Pokemon could be, those particular heights of the hobby, I don't know that we will see those again, right? So I think where we're at is we're reaching sort of a stabilization point across the Pokemon market. right? Where we're starting to get a better understanding of where particular cards, products, items, where their stabilization point is, and where we can project to see that these cards, items, products will be in the future, both in the short term and the long term. We have so much more data and we have so many more resources now than we did in the past. So again, I think that it's possible that there are undervalued cards when compared to modern, but I think the vice versa of that is also true. I think when compared to vintage, that there's probably a lot of modern cards that are better, right? And what is better? Better is a very subjective term. So what is better is going to vary. And also what is perceived as better is going to change with every generation. This is something that I've been talking about, where Pokemon has been trying to play upon the tastes and the preferences, I think, from the old guys like myself, the older generations. They're still trying to pump Charizard, they're still trying to pump Pokemon and cards that have worked for them in the past. And now you've got generations coming up, perhaps generations that are buying more of modern products than we are, and they have different tastes and different preferences because they grew up in a different time. And so they don't have those same sort of attachments that we had when we were kids. And so I think that will change. It's obviously been reflected in the types of cards that Pokemon is producing. And I think that it will continue to change, and they will continue to adapt to every subsequent generation if they're smart, which Pokemon is, and they will adjust to that. So, you know, it's really hard to say that that vintage is undervalued when compared to modern altogether. I think you have to look at it on a micro level and analyze what within vintage, what within modern could be undervalued, both right now, so modern versus modern, and vintage versus vintage, as well as vintage versus modern, right? Sort of a cross analysis between those different segments of the Pokemon market. Let's see, Northwest TCG, another opportunity Pokemon investors are missing are graded Pokemon coins. Are you speaking, Northwoods, of like the coins that are in collection boxes? I'm interested to know about that. I know that Ketchum All Collectibles has made videos about coins, particular coins that he was actually just churning and burning for crazy prices, which I again, there's things that always catch me by surprise that people are into. But yeah, if you could be more specific, let me know what you mean in regards to the coins. And we'll dive into that a little deeper. SDC, I bought an open Japanese box of Blue Star Stream, or Blue Sky Stream, I'm sure. I don't know how PSA can validate someone hasn't searched that box and took the secret rare out already. PSA G.I. Joe incident has soured me. Well, I believe it was not, to my knowledge, it was not PSA who authenticated that box of Logan Paul's. I think it was an independent third-party company or individual that authenticated that. But again, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. Did you play Game Boy Blue or Red? I played both, and I have both, and I played Yellow as well. I you know, in some ways I'm a completionist. I had to get all of them, and I had to complete all of them. So if you can see through a man's soul, depending on that, then I must have none. I must have no soul at all, since I played all of them. And he also said better equals demand, and that's true. But that also can be very ephemeral, and that also can be fleeting, and that also can be manipulated, right? And we've seen that, where demand very often can be closely tied to an influencer. It can be closely tied to things that are happening at that time, and that demand can also fall off, right? Particular cards can really fall off, and so you have to be careful, right, of just saying, oh, this card is in high demand. Well, is it going to remain in demand? Now, that's again where you have to differentiate between being, let's say, a flipper and an investor. For me, investing is holding a product at least a year at the minimum. For most of the things that I consider investments, I'm going to be holding them at least 3 to 5 years, if not longer. And so when I'm looking at something as an investment, I'm looking for it to appreciate year over year. And so I'm looking for that demand to stay steady, to have a nice growth curve over that period of time, and not something that is just ephemeral, fleeting, and is in demand at a particular time, but is sort of a manipulated type of demand. Let's see. SDC, yes, Pokemon tried to make gold cards the chase, but the price say otherwise if people decide to chase. And that's very true. That's very true. And again, Pokemon will adapt to that, and they will produce cards based upon the taste of what people want. And I think that's going to change. I think, obviously, it's always changed. You know, if it didn't, we would still have the same cards, same type of cards that we had in base set. And so it will continue to change, and preferences will change. People will always be wanting to see bigger, better in cards, and it'll just be interesting to see, you know, what's next on the horizon. Let's see. Ultramodern baseball cards will crash very hard. Okay, here we go. We're getting back to Northwood's initial question. Yes, the little plastic coin with shiny paint. The Arceus coins from the spring 2020 is selling at $70 PSA 10. That's crazy. Crazy, crazy. Again, you know, it in many ways it doesn't surprise me because, but I also wonder, like, again, getting back to our conversation about like ephemeral, fleeting demand versus long-term demand, things that people are going to be wanting 5-10 years from now. I don't know. I'm interested to get your guys' perspective. Do you think that that's something that will stick around, that people will continue to want, or do you think that's just sort of a fleeting, fly-by-night type of preference? SDC says, my favorite thing in modern Pokemon is predicting the new set chase card. I have a 90% hit rate. Dang, that's really good. The Magikarp, I still don't understand. Yeah, and I think, again, SDC, I think this ties back to what we've been discussing about understanding like the trajectory that Pokemon is taking and looking back at maybe the previous 3, 4, 5 sets and seeing what chase cards stood out in those sets. And then sort of juxtaposing that with what are some sets that maybe from 3 years ago, 5 years ago that are starting to take off, right? So when you look at that and you go, okay, tag team cards all of a sudden starting to take off. When we look at previous 3 sets, we're starting to see that the trainer cards are becoming the cream of the crop of the set, right? So now let's put those two things together. Trainer cards featuring maybe trainer Pokemon, right? And you start to see a theme start to emerge. And like, okay, if I see something like this in an upcoming set, chances are, all things being considered, that's probably going to be the big chase card, right? And Pokemon will also play to this as well, because you'll see in their marketing that they will hone in on particular trainers, Pokemon, certain themes, and you start to go, oh, okay, this is where this is the direction this set is taking, and this is probably where we're going to see it. This is how we're going to see it play out. And you can get early precursors to that by looking at Japanese sets. And there's not always a one-for-one when you look at Japanese set versus the English equivalent. Very, very often you will have the commonalities, and usually that top chase card is going to be the same, right? But maybe the top 5 cards could be different. But you can start to see a theme emerge there, and you can get an early sign of that when you look at the Japanese equivalent. GG, welcome in. Welcome in, brother. Sheesh. Magikarp equals shilling. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Magikarp, the thing about it, Magikarp has always kind of been that meme Pokemon. And don't get me wrong, that the Magikarp that we're speaking about here, I think it's a really cool card. All things considered, I think it's a very cool card. So I think Magikarp deserves his time in the sun, deserves his time in the spotlight. Adrian Steindl says, how is your feeling for the Sun and Moon sets and rays of them? Let's see. What does that say? Gosh, I'm having a hard time poking out. Sometimes it's hard to see things with the, I've got, like, obviously you can see the light right here from my webcam. And sometimes it creates like a reflection that makes it hard to see. How's your feeling for the Sun and Moon sets? Lately, they have skyrocketed. Is that drive my demand or hype? Let us know your thoughts around the subject. Thanks for sharing. Well, thanks for the question. I think, again, what happens, and you see this. I mean, guys, so I've been in this hobby not that long, or back into this hobby not that long, but since 2016. And over that period of time, you start to see themes emerge. You start to see patterns emerge. And typically what happens is after about 5 years, people start looking back on cards, from about that time frame in the past. And so I think when we look at Sun and Moon, that's also the time, around 2016 evolutions, Pokemon Go, sort of that renaissance period. Sun and Moon was sort of that first initial hype period of Pokemon. And so there were a lot of people that got in 2016, 2017, got out in 2018, and then came back in 2020, 2021. So I think what we're seeing in Sun and Moon sets is partly due to that, partly due to a harkening back to that period of time. But I think it is also people are looking to try to find an opportunity on a product. And so when you go back, it's like, okay, it's sort of that middle ground. Like it used to be, like let's say in 2016, that middle ground was like black and white era type of boxes or products, right? You go back further than that, products were getting really expensive. X and Y, they didn't really take off. They weren't really worth that much, even individual cards itself. So black and white was that middle ground. Now you fast forward, we're in Scarlet and Violet. We've gone through Sword and Shield. Sun and Moon is starting to become really expensive. So now you're going to start to see Sword and Shield products start to pick up sort of that middle ground. And you just start to see that pattern emerge, right? Where people are trying to get back and they're trying to buy stuff that's a little bit older, a little bit nostalgic to them, something that they haven't opened in quite some time. And then you slowly start to see that price tick up again and again. And really that 5-year time frame is a pretty good reference point of when you start to see sets that are prior to that 5-year time frame or right around there. That's when you start to see them start to tick up in price, right? You will have outliers in there, something like Evolving Skies, for instance, will just take off in a particular generation, in a relatively new generation. But yeah, going back to Sun and Moon, I think that's probably where you're seeing a lot of that, kind of all those things taken together. Ghost of Gary, PokéNav, do you have an eBay store? I do. Yeah, down in the video description, you can find my eBay store. Don't have a ton listed on there. There's a few cool things if you want to check out. I just sold my last Southern Islands box set on eBay. It was the Sky box set that features Mew. Last box set of that, and I had a bunch of those too, and that was my last one. But yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff on there if you guys want to check out my eBay store. Also have a TCG Player store. Again, not a ton on TCG Player. I do have a great story, and I do want to give kudos to TCG Player. However, so I've always had kind of my own website. I've done eBay. It's just recently that I've been utilizing TCG Player. Well, recently had a sale, had a Fusion Strike Pokemon Center Elite Trainer Box, which, by the way, if you guys don't know, Fusion Strike Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer Boxes are in stock back on Pokemon Center if you've been looking to get those. But and they're $50. That being said, prior to that, I was selling those same. Did I say booster box? I meant Elite Trainer Boxes. I sold those Elite Trainer boxes for about $75. Well, one went out. Good old USPS loses the box. I'm thinking, oh crap, here we go. I'm gonna have to eat the cost on this. I'm gonna have to refund the customer, yada yada. TCG Player stepped in. They not only refunded the customer, but they also covered my costs as well for shipping and everything. So I want to give a big shout out to TCG Player, because that's huge. And if you guys do sell on various platforms, you'll know that that is a nightmare if you run across that, because 9 out of 10 times you're just going to eat the cost on that, and you're just going to be out however much money. So unless you've got sufficient insurance to cover it, and even then trying to get that insurance claim from USPS or UPS is a nightmare. I mean, that's not guaranteed either. So big shout out to TCG Player. How do I have a 0% eBay feedback? Yeah, mainly just because I've just recently created another store. And yeah, so feel free to, if you do decide to buy something, give me a good rating on there, because that definitely helps. I would like to sell more on eBay. As far as graded cards go, you know, I've said it before, I really don't want to play the route of, you know, trying to sell a bunch of stuff and listing everything, especially when it comes to graded cards. You know, there's services out there like Z&G Emporium, where you can have your cards consigned with them, and altogether it's like 13.9% fees, total fees on your sales, which is really good and very comparable even to regular eBay fees. So yeah, I've done that. I've done consignments with Z&G, and for a lot of things I just would rather go that route than having to do it myself, because it's so relatively close in price. But yeah, plan on doing more on there. Really, you know, for me, especially now, Pokemon, you know, as in a selling aspect, is just sort of a small side hustle. I do still have a lot of value in products, but I'm very strategic in how I'm going about selling those, and the process that I'm going about in selling those. Like, I'm not just selling things as complete sealed products. Sometimes I'm breaking them down, getting packs graded, maybe breaking them down, maybe selling individual cards. You know, I'm not just selling everything just one by one as a sealed product, because I think that there's opportunities to be had. So I'm very, very strategic about it now. Yeah, but long story short, yeah, feel free to check out my eBay. If you like something, let me know. We may even be able to work out a deal, and definitely give me some good feedback on eBay. It certainly helps. We'll see you later, Shug Nasty. Also, Northwoods TCG gonna roll out. Really appreciate it, Northwoods. Take care, my friend. Brett, what's going on, man? Yeah, SDC, I'm a 6-year time frame for me to even think about selling. And it really depends. Like, I don't set hard parameters on all products or all cards. I really just try to assess as we go along. And I try to be as strategic as I can and analyze. You know, I'm a financial analyst, so that's what I do for a living, right? I take raw data, I analyze it, I forecast, try to be very precise in determining the best route for particular things, right? And do the same thing with Pokemon. And so, yes, I do see myself as a long-term investor, but that doesn't always mean that I'm trying to, you know, I'm like, oh, nope, I'm not selling something until I hit 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, right? I just assess things as I go along, and just kind of play into when I think there's particular market opportunities. Still have your evolution booster, but I'm down to 3. I made a video early on. You guys can go back to it. It's titled something like starting my own Pokemon business with $0 or something like that. So in 2022, I sold off probably about 80% of my inventory. And that included a lot of evolutions, booster boxes, booster packs, graded packs, things of that nature. So I am down to 3 evolutions booster boxes. I will probably keep one sealed for my own personal collection, and then the other two, I will probably break one down, grade all the packs. The other one I will probably sell sealed in years to come. I'll probably hold on to that one for a little bit longer before I decide to sell it. But yeah, I never thought I'd be down to that few Evolutions booster boxes. So, but here we are. Let's see, what real world market issues are you tracking to impact the Pokemon market? Well, I think realistically, I mean, I always pay attention to what's going on in the larger macro economy, because it does have a direct impact on the Pokemon market. Whether you like to believe it or not, it really does. That's people's purchasing power, their ability to buy products. So whether that is vintage products, modern products, new products, we have seen that especially with new set releases. There is a big decline in the amount of products being purchased. And I think a lot of that ties to the state of the current economy. I will be interested to see at the upcoming FOMC meetings what the Feds decide to do with interest rates. I think that will also have a big impact on obviously the macro economy, but also the Pokemon market as well. If they decide to raise interest rates again, or if they do start to go into their stage 2 of their quantitative easing process, of where they're going to pause and then eventually lower interest rates. So I'm paying attention to that. I pay attention to every FOMC meeting to see what they do. Because that, again, it affects pretty much everything. It obviously is going to affect housing, real estate. It's going to affect the Federal Reserve, if they're going to be quantitative tightening, if they're going to start printing more money. If they start printing more money, then that's definitely a time when I think more interest and more purchasing power, more spending is going to take place in something like Pokemon, which is considered obviously a luxury good. So I pay attention to all of those things. But that's really the big thing right now, I think, is interest rates. The Federal Reserve is really in control right now of where the economy is headed. And so I think those are the big things that I'm paying attention to right now. And that I would encourage you all as well, if you are interested in the Pokemon markets in general, I would highly recommend paying close attention to that. Angry RT, is Metazoo still alive? I don't know, but I have a bunch of Metazoo in that closet right now, just sitting around. I have noticed that there is some of the release event boxes, the Wilderness First Edition release event boxes have been moving fairly steadily for me. Some of the Cryptid Nation Second Edition boxes, like tribal theme decks, things like that. I don't have any more booster boxes from any of those. I had Wilderness First Edition, I had some Cryptid Nation Second Edition booster boxes. I used to buy those from Golden Distribution was the name, and I believe right now you could probably still get in with Golden Distribution if you wanted to buy some Metazoo products. I think that you could get in with them right now and be able to buy wholesale Metazoo Cryptid Nation Second Edition products. But I don't know. I mean, I have not really paid a whole lot of attention to it. The only reason that I paid attention to it back in the day was because we used to carry it in PokéRealm because people were asking for it. So we wanted to obviously meet that demand. And so we were carrying Metazoo at one time, but I really have not paid attention to it a whole lot since then. I just sell it when it sells and I get hold on to the rest. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be a sustainable TCG or not. Let's see, Brett. I feel like purchasing power has gone down at this point in time and people are offloading. Yeah, I mean, that was happening even at the end of 2021. We started to see that. There were a lot of people who had jumped onto the Pokemon hype train, we'll call it, and had overextended and over-leveraged themselves. And I, myself, was being approached by an innumerable amount of people in the hobby trying to offload their collections, and were accepting, 30%, 20% of market price because they had just become so strained and over leveraged in what they had done. So I think that that has sort of curtailed, and I think now we're starting to see less of that, and to a lesser extent. And I think the people that are probably offloading at this point are probably offloading more modern type of products, because it's really tough right now, because especially with modern, the margins are so slim. So for instance, like let's say a booster box, right? Booster boxes from the distributor is right around $95.50. Well, when sets are releasing, last few sets, that includes Scarlet and Violet Base, Paldea Evolved, Obsidian Flames, most of those are maybe $120 a booster box. And most of those are being sold on eBay, TCG Player. Once you deduct your fees and shipping, especially if you're providing free shipping, once you deduct all that, you really are not making anything on products. You're just breaking even. And so I think the offloading is probably coming from folks that are they're just trying to get rid of their products so that they can get their money back and try to maybe catch fire on the next set. Maybe Pokemon 151 is that, but even with Pokemon 151, it still has not been, it's not fantastic. I can tell you that. And my thoughts on the future of CGC, I think that they have a lot of work to do. I think that they definitely have to find their identity. They have to stick with their guns in the direction that they're pursuing. And they can't make any more dramatic changes like what they've had, because I think one more big shift like that and it will sink their company, and it will sink their credibility in the trading card world. What was the name of my friend that lived in Hawaii, used to search eBay and send out good deals with affiliate links via emails? I am not too sure. The only person that Commander Curtis. I know who you're talking about now. Commander Curtis. You know, I have not spoken to that guy in so long. I don't know what he's doing nowadays, honestly. Yeah, I forgot all about Commander Curtis. Yeah, we used to, in fact, I think he's got family here in Arizona. We sat down once for lunch when he was in town, but I have not spoken to him in, years. So I could not tell you what he's up to or what he's doing. I think he actually commented maybe on one of my first videos coming back. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what old Commander Curtis is up to. Brett says, I agree. It's crazy. Card stores are selling cases at $95 a box right now. Yeah, it's wild, and it's tough. People have been asking me, what about Japanese? It's almost like the markets have flipped, from 2021, 2020. Nobody really cared about Japanese. I was saying, hey, you might want to start looking into Japanese. And the markets have changed dramatically, and they've almost flipped. We're almost in a market now in Japanese that we were in 2020 and 2021 for English modern, and now modern English is where Japanese was back in 2020 and 2021. So that's just again the ebbs and the flows of the market. It will probably turn around at some point, and who knows, we may see just the opposite. And the sets now that you're picking up at $95 a box, right, that everybody's offloading, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, people will be like, oh man, I wish I would have, you just hear it again and again. I wish. So you just never know. And that's why I say I am the type where I just try to go with my intuition, go with my experience. And if I'm going to invest in something, then I'm going to utilize those previous experiences that I have. I'm not going to jump into everything. I'm just going to jump into the things that I think have that potential. And if you guys have followed this channel for any length of time, you're probably pretty familiar with my buying strategies, with my investing strategies, and that really hasn't changed. Certain things, things tweak, and obviously I learn new things every single year, but so far it's done pretty well for me. Commander Curtis, he moved back to the mainland. Well, good for him. Good for him, man. I hope he's doing well. Is it true CGC 9.5s are now automatically regraded to CGC 10s? Yes, to my knowledge, that is the case. That they're now considered 10s. So big change there. Big change. All right, guys. Well, if you have any last questions here, we usually like to go for about an hour or so. If you have any last questions, toss them in the chat now. Forever hold your peace. We'll get a last few questions in here, and then we'll sign off for the day. Before we do that, I just want to thank everybody for jumping in here into this live chat. I hope you enjoy it. I certainly enjoy doing these, and I appreciate all of the great questions and you guys helping each other out in the chat as well. Are the riches truly in the niches? I think so. I truly think so. It's what's always worked for me in so many aspects of life. And I think that what you do is you just kind of take that top-down approach, right? You start to look at it from a high level, and you start to kind of funnel down to where you fit, right? Whether that's business, investing. I think it's probably a very good adage of riches in the niches. I found that to be true for myself. So not always, but very often, if you're jumping into the riches the same time as everyone else, all you're going to find is coal. You're not going to find the riches. The riches have been picked through. All right, let's see. Any last questions before we roll out? Again, speak now. Forever hold your peace. Out of Neo Premium files, what one do you think is most investable? I'm trying to think back to them. I want to, whichever one. I really like the one with Entei. I think that one's great. I'm just trying to remember which cards are in each particular premium file. I actually have a video that I talked very thoroughly on the Neo Premium files 1, 2, and 3. You can go back. It's one of those underrated Pokemon card videos, and I went in deep on each of those. And I don't know. I think I like all of those products. I've got one in here for the 10th anniversary collection, which showcases Pokemon from, you guys can look this up. Just look up Japanese 10th anniversary commemorative collection. I've got one of those it's not sealed, but it's great condition binder, all the cards in there. Great piece. Very similar in a lot of ways, I think, to the premium files. Looks like Commander Curtis emails every now and then. Well, that's good. That's good. I'm glad to see that he's still up to something. Hopefully I'll be able to catch him. Maybe he's moved to Arizona. I don't know if he's moved to the mainland. And like I said, I'm pretty sure he had family here, and I'd love to catch up with him again. Maybe at a convention or something like that. He's a cool dude. Let's see, anything else? All right, guys. Well, we'll go ahead and call it for today then. Doesn't look like anyone's got any other questions that are just pressing them now. So again, I want to thank you guys all for joining in. Once again on this live chat, a lot of familiar faces here in the chat. It's so cool. A lot of the same people that are in this chat were in the same chats back in 2020, which is really wild. It's cool to see you guys come back, especially after I've taken a long hiatus, and I just really appreciate the support. Appreciate all you guys joining in. Next year, I know I haven't been out and about a whole lot this year. Next year, I do plan on hitting a lot more. Trying to hit Worlds, depending on where that's at. Trying to hit Card Party. Definitely want to do that. Maybe a Collecticon or two. Those are on my bucket list for next year. Definitely looking to do a lot more traveling next year now that everything's kind of toned down. Gotten very comfortable with my job and just comfortable with everything. Very, very settled right now. So I feel like next year is going to be a good year for traveling, getting out, and I really hope to see a lot of the people that are in these chats at those conventions. So again, really appreciate everyone in this chat. Definitely give yourself a pat on the back. You certainly deserve it because of the support that you show, not just to myself, but to a lot of the other fellow Pokemon content creators. You guys are fantastic. And it'll be a dream to see all of you in person, shake your hand, and tell you thank you face to face. So, all right, guys. Have a great weekend. I will see you all next time. My name is PokéNav. I'm here to help you navigate the world of Pokemon, one video at a time. I will see you all.